I've got a Maggie Thatcher. Don't know where that come from. Got a Maggie.
For as far back as most of us can remember, British culture has been defined by its youth tribes. From mods to skins, suede heads to punks, soul boys, ravers, grungers, garage heads and emo kids. The UK has been a breeding ground for young people trying to look fresh under pressure.
So what do you want to talk about?
These youth cults, born and bred on the streets of Britain, and often taken onto a world stage, have come about through a journey of innovation, of experimentation, of disillusionment, fear, love, and occasionally violence. We're going to tell the story of that journey, of how through clothes and music, original kids from Coventry, Camden and Croxteth helped Britain change the fashion habits of entire generations and develop the UK into the cradle of youth culture it is today.
Where I grew up, it's a kind of overspill area, Liverpool. It was a place where everyone was sort of dissatisfied, longing to be at the centre of things. So you're looking for whatever is new.
The mid-80s, Britain was in the midst of a consumerist daydream. The monochrome youth culture of the rude boys and new mods had been put to rest. And the youth of Britain were in search of a youth scene that reflected their carefree, aspirational ways.
Danger in downtown Brixton.
Soul boys and soul girls were a predominantly working-class youth tribe with their roots dating back to the mid-70s. They were young men and women who fell in love with the glamorous, optimistic sounds of American soul and funk.
It was a little collision of two cultures. The Jamaican community in New York had taken it from the Italian Americans, the wise guys.
You gotta be like me.
So the look that kind of was big in London had actually come from Jamaica via New York, via the wise guys. So basically we were wearing the clothes that was Johnny Boys wears in Mean Streets. So we were 8 years, 9 years out of date already. That kind of merged into a very early soul boy look. So you had kind of the smoothie, who was kind of next natural thing from the suede, or the Bowie boy. And the Bowie boy, you only had one or two of those at school because, you know, they look weird.
Listen, you know you're a man, right? It doesn't matter whether you don't wear makeup or you may wear makeup.
And there was a good chance you were going to get a kick in at the bus stop if you were dressed too weird back then.
It's 1975 or so, and I'm supplying all these shops on the King's Road. It was a whole vibe going, a mix-up of 1940s, 50s, punk, new wave. These soul kids really got into this whole look. Mostly it was like parading around the King's Road on a Saturday afternoon. So we've got James here in his original 50s printed shirt, and the very fashionable at the time peg pants and the essential plastic belt, the winkle pickers and the wraparound shades. This is the soul boy look. Jelly shoes, really, really important. Popular in the mid to late 70s, but also had a revival in the 80s. That was sold up and down the King's Road in those trendy shops. Would tear your feet to pieces. You know, the soul kids loved them.
If you look back on it, it is quite a camp look, which is always surprising because it's en masse.
A lot of soul boys was wearing the bowling shirts, which the Northern Soul lads were wearing as well. We all respect the Northern Soul scene. There was definitely some soul boys who had a little bit of that Northern Soul look, but our fashion, I thought, was always a lot cooler, to be honest. You know, a lot of the trousers like this were, you know, of a wider sort of style, if you like. And, you know, the shirts are kind of, again, they've sort of got that kind of bowling shirt kind of thing, a little bit wild. We kind of changed our look a little bit after a few years of the soul boy thing. A few of us started getting into the Gabici Farahs and crocodile skin shoes. For years, a lot of reggae kids would have been wearing the Gabici and the Farahs, and we just kind of took it, and, you know, a lot of guys from football took it.
Britain didn't have too many exports in Thatcher's era, but our football teams were amongst the world's best.
It's well done, Liverpool.
Following them around Europe were a loyal band of young designer-obsessed men who quickly became known as dressers, stylers and casuals.
England, scarves, Mexico, football hats. England, England. Old England 82. Back in the early days when I first started going to football, I didn't want to be a mod. I wanted to be like, I saw people wearing Tashini, Fila, so I thought, oh, this is very nice. Bulldog Bobby. This is when casual was at its prime. That's when everyone was into it, 82.
Darren, when did you get that from?
10, 15 years ago.
Casual culture soon became an obsession for a generation, as many young men followed a tradition of sartorial one-upmanship, wearing the best in European knitwear, expensive trainers and luxury ski wear.
Me and my friends used to walk up King's Road at night time when it was closed just to look in the window. That's what clothes used to mean for us. What have we got here? We got, oh look, here we go. The ultimate football on the terraces. International, look, made in New Zealand. Originals, 84, 85, unworn. You wouldn't wear the same pair of trainers twice to football in a month. And you wouldn't play football because you didn't want to ruin your trainers. I'm getting confused now, got so many. You see someone come with a better look, like, oh, I wish I bought that one, but you couldn't because they was too expensive. Giorgio Armani was so expensive, but it was such a banging label. If you had this when you was younger, you'd won the lottery. Funny enough, I didn't. On the terraces, this was like the ultimate Lacoste ski jumper. A few Stone Island bits, ice, change colour, still changes colour. When you went football, you sort of felt a little bit, oh, he's got the same trains as me. I stand 200 yards away from him. But fashion at football only lasted for like 3 weeks. People like looking for certain things, and it was about looking the part.
Football on a Saturday afternoon was like a catwalk. If you could only afford one shirt, the only place to wear that shirt to impress other boys would be football.
It was much more about class, so it's kind of aspirational. The idea that 15-year-old kids can look the same as some jet-setting Californian businessman.
Independent boutiques across the UK began stocking French and Italian sportswear. Tough post-industrial cities like Glasgow embraced the race for a clean, lean.
Glasgow's always had a culture of being really into labels for some reason. It has had a rich history of people being label obsessed. The thing that's reported about casual now is European sportswear like Lacoste, Fila, which totally marketed themselves at teenagers. Casual culture now is a bit of a dirty word, I think, because like all culture now, it's been sucked up by big companies. Before things used to develop from the street, it was all about reappropriating stuff. We went to dusty old sports shops in the high street of the town to buy like an old Adidas tracksuit. Football casuals like wearing Burberry or Aquascutum, it wasn't designed or made for them, but they appropriated and made it their own. But nowadays, big brands from Louis Vuitton down to Adidas, they make products which are specifically marketed at kids to wear. Whereas before, when I was a kid, you weren't marketed to, you were into stuff because you were into it and you made it your own.
Earliest jacket I've got is the 1983 teleseller jacket, reflective detailing. Bit of experimental stage for Stone Island. The badge is on the front as opposed to the left arm. I guess with all these sort of labels, I was sort of more thrown into seeing them around through going out raving and going to clubs. I remember trying to get into a metalheads night in Birmingham when Goldie came up, and all the Birmingham City Zulu ran and rushed the door. It was just to see a Burberry caps and Stone Island jackets, and I was like, wow, that's wicked. That's wicked, I want a bit of that. And what I think appeals to a lot of people about Stone Island, it's a real boys brand. It's like, oh wow, yeah, this one changes colour, this one's reflective, this one's made out of stainless steel, wow. It's like, yes, it's kind of, it transcends fashion, and it's that youth culture thing of looking good and trying to one-up and shit and trying to look better than your mates. Wearing things like this, I mean, this is madness. Look at it, it's got a deer on the back of it.
But as the decade progressed, the pendulum of influence swung from the marble plazas of Europe to the streets of New York and Chicago.
This is acid, man.
As the sound systems of Britain were taken over by hip-hop, house, and eventually the rave scene.
Dancing, beautiful women everywhere, drugs.
Saturday afternoon on the terraces wasn't the only place to peacock and perform in the freshest garments from the continent. The soul and funk scenes had recently inherited a younger cousin in the form of electro. The New York Bronx Zulu Nation had established block parties reappropriating electronica and Eurobeat with funk and soul.
This was one of the records that kind of started resonating. A lot of mid-80s DJs started picking up, like Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince, and other people used to cut this up, and it's like... and it's quite a well-known track.
The local kids began to dance in a way that truly hadn't been seen before.
A lot of people think that if you're from New York and you're from the Bronx, that you know good. But we're from the Bronx, and we out here to show everybody that we're good.
People started getting to see what the New York thing was really about. There were certain specific fashion things that people ended up trying to obtain. These were a thing that came out in the 80s. They were called Adidas Ewings. So, you know, if someone was wearing these, you knew they'd been to New York. What these basically allowed you to do was to have the fat lace thickness. You know, no one else could get them because they weren't sold in Europe. So there was a big challenge for people to get hold of stuff. The original name I started out with was Skull, and then it went to Mace, which was when I started getting into the street art. The next piece of garment was really the Goose, which comes along sort of 84, 85.
Want it right, I got bass.
That was the leather jacket everyone wanted to get hold of. Run DMC had them. I actually had a friend going over to New York, and I just said, look, get me one or I'll never talk to you again.
Hip-hop and electro integrated beautifully into the existing soul and funk club scene during the 80s. The use of funk and soul rhythms mixed with contemporary instrumentation updated the sounds to generate a renewed interest in clubbing.
Back then, it was about the fashion you wore, it was about the music you listened to, it was about the participation with your friends. You know, if you couldn't dance, you could do something else. But it gives you that kind of inclusion, which has been really hard to replicate for people now.
The original UK B-boys brought dance culture back to the clubs in a big way. But the elaborate floor moves were never going to allow everyone time on the dance floor. Soon the emerging house sound of Chicago stripped UK club culture back to its barest essentials.
Check that body, baby.
House music had come of age in the industrial cities of the Midwest, a sound which combined regional influences of rhythm and gospel with a Teutonic rigor.
It's a new beginning, a new fresh beginning. What a great groove,
This was soul music for the Reagan era, electronic soul.
I would say tonight is a brand new beginning for house music.
How hot is house music now? On a scale of 1 to 10, it's 12.
But its ubiquity didn't happen overnight. It had come from the underground in America. But it was in Manchester, a city with many similarities to the industrial Midwest sensibilities of Detroit and Chicago, that house music spawned its first truly British incarnation.
The UK produces house records as good, sometimes better than its Chicago counterparts.
I used to just train in my bedroom, and I remember rearing out the carpet through dancing, just dancing.
The dance crews of the soul and funk scene began to shift their focus to the bass and groove of the new house sounds. Moss Side's Foot Patrol were at the forefront.
Anyway, now young people in the Northwest are collectively swivelling their hips in a most unusual way to some highly intoxicating music.
Mastermind
Roadshow.
Mastermind Roadshow. I think that was one of our main first gigs, actually. I remember all the girls, everybody was around and everybody was buzzing. Oh, Foot Patrol, yeah, Foot Patrol in the house, they're going to be dancing.
Yeah, Manchester's very own Foot Patrol!
It's a good one for our first gig, yeah.
About 83, when you used to go to the old days, because the old days were going from then. When the house started to come in about 84, 85, so the clubs started to change a little. Took it and we went to house clubs. Nottingham, Wolverhampton, Leeds, Gloucester, Bristol, Coventry, Walsall. So when you went there, you know, you had to go there and represent your city, because that's what it was about. And that's how it used to flow.
As house music slowly shook the nation, the scene took its time to decide where and to whom it belonged. The amyl nitrate-soaked throb of Eurobeat had been the soundtrack of choice for some of London's more flamboyant nightclubs.
Oh no! Being from London, you do see a lot there. You know, did like the gay clubs behind your records are out, and I think a lot of those clubs are quite mad anyway.
In 1986, a few dedicated British soulies took a season's holiday in Ibiza. The usual sights and sounds of San Antonio couldn't cut it, and they went in search of something more unique.
Yeah, I don't even know if it came around, but we decided, we wanted to go away to Ibiza the next summer.
What they would find would change youth culture forever.
There was 4 of us. We just saved up all through the winter, rented a flat for 4 months, and we were all living in San Antonio. But Amnesia was where we went every night. I would never miss it. And that's where I heard the music. Yeah, in 87, in Amnesia, obviously like music all night, there was quite a big section that was really housey. Just like, it's magical the way they did the music in there. You can't even, it's really hard to describe. It's like a complete journey, which is priceless, really.
Tell us who this is.
Stop by John, but stop by on. Can't even pronounce it. Julio de... Typical, I've picked a record that I can't pronounce. Oh, for God's sake. I just like the sound of it. Never really said the name. The next year, when like the look really developed, because we'd all been hanging out for a while together, and everyone started taking tons of ecstasy. The British guys, they were wearing Chevignon, like dungarees, classics, Nouveau and Chippy and stuff, but I remember the Chevignon stuff loads. I mean, you always share clothes with your friends anyway, but I think at that point, you know, everyone started giving each other their clothes and swapping, and that's where maybe the look sort of came from.
They discovered the sun-kissed euphoric parties held by DJ Alfredo at Club Amnesia, finding an exotic mix of European debutantes and dilettantes, rubbing shoulders with fashion models, transvestites and ex-football casuals.
No responsibilities, just out every night. But it inspired so many people. So many clubs came from that in the early days, but I think it still inspires people now.
With the help of DJ Paul Oakenfold, they brought back the spirit of Club Amnesia to an unlikely location in South London.
After Ibiza in 87, when we went back to London, we were all hanging out. We were like having house parties and stuff.
Gary Haseman, who did the Acid record, he said, oh look, you've got to go down to this club called Zoom out Bermondsey way.
Paul Oakenfold invited a few of his like London friends, and they hadn't seen the scene, and they were kind of at the back of the room. Like.
So we all came down, our little posse or whatever, stood in the bar all moody, and immediately we thought, oh, it's a bit dodgy this. It just had a little bit of a football crowd down there. Oh, there's a bit of Millwall there, there's a bit of West Ham there. And there's all these kids dancing on the floor going nuts. And Paul Oakenfold come over to us, he said, you don't get it, you guys, do you? You really don't get it. We're like, what? But then we kind of realised that actually, you know, there's something going on here. This is a bit mad.
This is acid, man.
All these guys coming up to you going, you're right, mate, and all this stuff. And it was the first time, you know, you're seeing all these people loved up. It was such a different experience to what we'd seen. It sort of blew our minds, you know, it really did.
All them lights flashing don't do you any good either, do it? They drive you mad, don't they?
I was sort of resting a little bit because I was having a bit of a acid house experience. But the next minute I heard the Beatles being played in the dance area, and it just made me get up. And there's all these kids in ponchos and long hair, which you hadn't seen for years, face paint, all holding hands, singing All You Need Is Love, and it just sort of snapped me back into the dance floor.
A new day zero had come, an event horizon in British youth culture. And when the new wonder drug ecstasy landed on the scene, things were never quite the same.
The acid house scene come along, happiest times, I loved it. But that's where fashion started changing. My acid house top. When you was in the club with them reflecting lights, whoo, people used to trip off you.
When actually it wasn't anything like that really at the beginning. It was very dour, it was very drab.
Spectrum, 88, check this out, can you feel it?
Loose baggy t-shirts, pair of old Converse, Lee dungarees, which had been a really big soul boy kind of staple in the mid to late 70s.
The massive difference was you don't have to do your fucking boots up anymore. I never bought a pair of boots again. Doing 14-old boots up for 10 years, every time you want to go somewhere, it's a fucking pain in the arse. And then that all changed. Then it was like, I'm wearing something comfortable with no labels on it. And that was indicative of a lot of society, not just your clothes. You were so defined by your clothes, and that would be the same for the Kevs and the Soul Boys.
It was as if the entirety of British youth was somehow loosening up. The style had once again shifted to accommodate the dance.
It doesn't matter what you wear. Acid is just like we just like this, right? We don't wear bright colours, you know what I mean? To us, acid is just a way of life, you know what I mean? It's just a rave, man.
The idea of raves, illegal parties, had been forgotten about since the 60s, as the Ibiza scene grew, taking a foothold in several regular nightclubs across London. The new drugs became integral to the parties.
We could feel that there was change in the air. Now all the hardcore ravers have been doing it since the beginning of '88. We're being surrounded by this culture that's emerging. There was no choice in me. I was just like, yes, because it was everything I loved. You know, electronic music, dancing, beautiful women everywhere, drugs.
House music took hold very fast. The youth of Britain rediscovered an alternative existence in creating their own scene, their own party.
Post-war England, you get this set of conditions that are fairly unique, and they create this very particular phenomenon that, if you look at it, I think only really lasts 40 years. It's not that long. These things they evolve and then they dissipate. It's natural laws of entropy.
As Britain's youth tribes finally dropped their fists, their hands, hearts and possibilities finally reached for the sky. A new era of boundless hedonism had been ushered in, and the fashion industry had already begun to take notice of the kids from Seattle wearing plaid shirts. But the fashion houses of Milan paid no mind to the kids in Streatham stockpiling iceberg jeans and Moschino jackets. Britain had finally loosened its tie.